Hello, hello, mi gente. My people, GizzyCredit here. How you guys doing? Hope all is well. You guys hear me? I know it's 6 p.m. Hello, over here on Facebook. You guys can't see my face, which is very, very weird and whack. And I can't change my webcam information here. So it's definitely whack. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Facebook, I may have to do this somewhere else because it's not working here on Facebook. Anyways, how you guys doing? 5 people, 4 people logged on. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Listen, hope all is well with everyone. We're about to start this podcast in a few. Just bear with me. I may have to use webcam, but you guys can't see me. But it's fine. I'm gonna be here on the Facebook business page. If you guys have any questions, you can ask me on Facebook. If not, then what can I do? What can I say? Hope all is well with everyone. Technical difficulties doesn't matter. Hello, Brian. Hello, Maui Bradley. How you doing? Hope all is well. Let me call John. Okay. We're gonna do this real quick for you guys. Like I said, we continue to educate you. We continue to inspire you, make you feel better about this whole thing that's happening with the economy. So definitely don't feel bad.
Oh,
How you doing, John? Sorry about that.
you good? What's going on?
Brian, Maui, you guys can hear as well. Let me know. On Facebook, I can't get an image of myself, so I don't know if people could see me on Facebook. I apologize for that. But no, hope all is well. This is John. John, say hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello. What's good? What's good? Okay. So we wanted to have this podcast because we want to go with what is happening right now during these times. Not only during the Rona, but also because you can't say that word on YouTube for some reason. But you guys know it's the Rona. And also what was going on with the protesting. So some fortunate events. John and I definitely don't agree with what happened. This podcast will not be about political or anything like that. No, none of that stuff. We both agree that this wasn't right. This wasn't something that, is horrible. Rest in peace to the people and people rioting and all that stuff. And I know that people who watch me know that, a lot of these places that have been riots, we get a lot of those customers because that's people in those areas. They call me for credit repair, and John fixes their credit all the time. So I don't know if you want to say something starting off, John.
No, I mean, other than the fact that I think what happened was terrible. Obviously, it was awful. It was, but I think I don't think there's anybody. I mean, I haven't heard anybody that doesn't agree with that. Unwaveringly, right? Just it's terrible. It's a tragedy. That goes without saying. But what we're trying to do with this this cast is talk about kind of the economic repercussions of some of the protests that were and the rioting that resulted. Me specifically. I'm in Philadelphia and I'm in the Rittenhouse Square section of Philadelphia. So I don't. Everybody's in a different part of the country, but
John sent me pics on Saturday. I think it was Saturday evening. I saw a video.
Saturday morning.
You saw it Saturday morning, but I didn't know. I'm in Jersey, so I don't know what's happening. I'm with my daughter most of the time and all that. So I see a video and I see an area where I went to visit John once. I said, "Yo, that area looks looted and everything." That's where John lives at. And the shame about it is that John just got there. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh man, and then this has to happen. So I contacted John at nighttime, and he's telling me these horrible things that's happening. I'm pretty sure you guys seen how Philly looks. John is right there, ground zero of what he could see. So John also grew up in Philadelphia. John is from Philadelphia. He went to Penn State. What is it? Penn Space.
Temple.
John went to Temple University, so that's all around that area. So we want to have this podcast because John is also a real estate investor. He knows about finance. He knows about economics. And he's also a real estate investor. So we want to have this conversation on what's going to happen now. How long will it take to get these cities up and running again? On top of the coronavirus, now you got this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about last week was the fact that coming from Southeast Florida up to here, it was a huge contrast, right? Florida's at like 85% capacity right now as far as back up and running, right?
Wow.
Up here, when I got back here last week, it was about 5% probably, and I think I'm highballing it. Now, I mean, it's probably going in reverse. So, I mean, you're talking about effectively a non-existent economy here as far as functioning in any capacity. So, with that in mind, we're just going to kind of carry it forward and basically try to explain what now, what the fallout's going to look and how this is going to impact what's already in place, right? In place meaning the economic fallout from the coronavirus, obviously, and then you push it forward with this now on top in major cities that are getting hit. Obviously, some cities are hit worse than others. I think Philadelphia's taking a pretty good beating. I can tell you when I walk out my door and go down Walnut, you see it looks like a hurricane's coming or it was hit. In Florida, when the hurricanes come, everybody boards up.
Yeah, it does look like that. But this was the hurricane of people.
Right, but now it's clean and boarded up. Right, back on Saturday, it was literally when I sent you those pictures. That was when nobody had come. It had even been the firefighters were still fighting the fire. There was a huge 3-alarm fire right on Walnut. That they fought the whole night, along with all the looting and everything. It looked like a war zone, and now it's just all boarded up. But what I'm trying to make is that. Let me just go back and explain. Now, I'll speak specifically to Philadelphia right now in this particular section, and you can scale it out everywhere else. Now, in the section that I'm in, which is Rittenhouse Square, it's a nice section. It's where a lot of the retailers are at, all the high-end retailers, and it brings in a lot of money. A lot of the higher-end value properties are here, and it brings in a lot of money to the city of Philadelphia. The city of Philadelphia makes the revenue, obviously, on taxation, a majority of it, different types of taxation, right? You get property tax, which you get from real estate, and in Philadelphia, the way that's determined, and a lot of states, Florida's the same way, is They base it off an assessed value. So every year they reassess the values of the properties, meaning what their assessor determines the values of those houses are, each particular house. When that value goes up, they attach a millage rate, which is basically a multiplier to that assessed value. That translates to an actual taxation, right? So If your house goes from being worth $500,000 last year to $600,000 this year, your property taxes obviously A, go up, but B, that's more revenue to the city, right? All things the same. And the city of Philadelphia, for the longest time, wasn't able to operate from a functional system because, going back 7, 8, 9 years, the city of Philadelphia, it wasn't as nice, right? It was a city that needed gentrification going back to 05, 06. And as it grew and grew and grew, and it got built out, and it reached a bit of a pinnacle, which it reached most recently, probably last year. And a lot of people moved in. You had a lot of the older people that were scared of the city because in their generation it was dangerous down here. They moved down here. You had young couples, hipster couples that moved into the neighborhoods, the borough neighborhoods that were like Fishtown and stuff, where they could identify with the theme of the neighborhood, etc. Well, when you get into a situation like this where because let me go back before I go forward. So in this situation, so there's sales tax. Sales tax in the city of Philadelphia is obviously you have to pay sales tax on anything that you sell, right? As a retailer, when you run any business in the city of Philadelphia, there's a business privilege tax, which means you get taxed on the top line. So you can make $1 million 1 year gross revenue. You have to pay them a tax whether you make no money on that net income or you lose $1 million. Doesn't matter. They charge you. It's F you pay me, right? Wow. On that top line. That's the business privilege tax.
Yes.
Then there's a net profits tax where they get you on the bottom line. So that all coincides with effectively how and the real estate taxes, right? They get the real estate taxes as well. Now, if you're dealing in a part of the city like this, and I'm going to start macro and I'll work out I'm just going to start micro and I'll work out macro as I explain this. In the city of Philadelphia, in this neighborhood where a large majority of the higher priced houses are and all the high end retailers that run volume are, when you go and you basically, let's start with the retailers, and you take a situation where not only can they not open now, but they haven't been open for the last 3 months. Plus, there's a real significant probability that more than likely over the next couple of months, due to the amount of damage that's going on here, even if they're getting insurance and they have insurance payouts, they're not going to reopen right away because they're going to wait for the insurance money to come through, which puts you into the end of this year. City of Philadelphia is already running at a shortfall, and they're going to continue to run at a shortfall. Coupled with that is the fact that now you have a situation where in a neighborhood, because I've lived in this neighborhood for 20 years almost, this neighborhood was always protected more so than a lot of the other neighborhoods, which is why you had a lot of...
Well, you sent me the pic of, what is it, the TD Bank North? The thumbnail picture. It says, eat, coffee, cafe, bank. Like, how hipster can that be?
No. But that was a Capital One bank with a coffee shop in it, inside it. So it's like a banking coffee shop that they destroyed. But, the point I'm trying to make is that when you extract that revenue, the city runs tight on revenue. When all these retailers leave or they're not built up and it's a board up neighborhood, the people that live in the neighborhood that were already skittish walking in revisit those thoughts and they decide to sell. So you're talking about a situation that could easily reverse engineer. Now, Philadelphia is just one example of a much wider example that goes on in our broader country, right? There's a lot of markets that got built up over the last 6 or 7 years that were depressed prior to that, right?
Yes.
6, 7, 8, 9 years that got built up over that period of time. That happens. A lot of major cities were like that. Okay, and I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them. So in light of that, you're talking about a situation where if Philadelphia is just one small cog in a much larger wheel, you're saying to yourself, is this going to ultimately lend to what we've been talking about and just exacerbate what we've been talking about with the broader economy, the asset repricing that goes on, that's going to go on as a result of this fallout? Because it certainly isn't aiding in the economy, right? There's nothing about this that's helping. I mean, all the stores here are literally, there's a lockdown in Philadelphia right now. I mean, literally, the mayor ordered the last couple of days, no stores can be open, no businesses can be open unless you're an essential business. It's back to like the early days of crime. And I didn't think there was anything operating to begin with, so I don't know what he effectively shut down, quite honestly.
Oh, okay. Other
than the supermarkets, but he made it abundantly clear that wasn't going to happen. Now, I don't know if that's how all other states are concerned that are being impacted by this as well. But I can tell you that's what's happening right here. And I think that, when you look at it from that perspective and you say to yourself, okay, you have the coronavirus already, right? Yes. And right now on the real estate side of things, certain markets may be seeing, there's just such a dearth of supply right now, and there's a natural, even a sluggish, but a natural demand that exists. The real estate prices are in certain areas are coming down exponentially, and some are still kind of staying propped up, right? But what's going to ultimately end up happening is you're going to start to see houses flood the market over the course of time, over the next couple of months. Might not happen now because we're just at the starting point right now. And the fact you're seeing prices hold on, even though the numbers are way down, but you're seeing them hold on, is because of the fact there's just so little supply. So you got 15 people. All those 15 people might have to move to Philadelphia, might have to move to Jersey. They have a necessity to buy, right?
Yes.
And there's only 7 houses for sale, and they got to move in a month, right? So effectively what ends up happening is in order to get into that house, you're seeing these houses sell. The numbers are way down as far as the amount of sales that have gone. Look at the real estate real estate association number, something to that extent. I forget what the actual acronym is for it. But if you look at it, you'll see year over year the numbers are down. New home sales are down. Prices are already down. Last week they came out. New home prices were up, but the value of them were way down.
Yeah.
Right. So like the actual value of the house. Imagine being the guy that bought that house last year, and this year it's worth 20% less, just naturally because of economic conditions.
Wow.
What I'm trying to make is when you add something like this into the mix, and you have businesses that were already struggling, right? Already struggling to figure out how they were going to reopen, and you add the fact that their business just got torpedoed, or the general market in that area is going to lag exponentially, right? Whether it be people moving out of that area or any number of other variables that could cause it to continue to exacerbate. I don't see, again, this just goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about in other podcasts. Not doom and gloom, just reiterating, reaffirming a point of what the reality is to expect. I mean, if you think about it, there's always a duality that exists. There's an ebb and a flow that exists in anything in life, right? And if you, some markets, most markets, have had the luxury of the last 7, 8, 9 years being up, just steadily up, right? Like a hockey stick, up, right? And there's always a natural correction that exists. It's just how it works. It doesn't ever just endlessly go up. Just not how it works. Not the real estate market, not the stock market, as people learned 2 months ago, even though it's coming back. But at the same time, there's an ebb and a flow that exists. So there will be some sort of correction. But the fact that you have these kinds of things, like, issues, these are kind of cementing issues, right? So now you're getting into the psyche of the people. It's not just the coronavirus idea, but now you're getting into the fact that the potential neighborhood could be going down, right? Oof. I mean, like, for instance, when you're dealing, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience.
Yeah.
In the neighborhood I'm in right now, how retailers that just got completely torched, right, are going to come to rush back and be in that neighborhood when they knew their whole auspice behind coming in there in the first place was that neighborhood was typically protected. That was the crown jewel of the city, right? Yes. Because it brings the most revenue. It drives the most taxation. The most tourists come down here as far as
that's the hottest market. That's the hottest market to make money
in the city, right? So it was always, whenever anything went down, there was always cops stationed everywhere, right?
Those places like that, you could put any type of business in it, and it's going to be successful.
No, you can't though. Here's the problem: the rents are insane.
Oh.
So you can't come in and just plop, not that there's anything wrong with this, but you just can't plop, Billy's cards. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work like that. There's a reason that there's 8 retailers down here because the rent's $25,000 a month, right?
And you know what? You do have your Foot Locker, your Old Navy. Those are big retailers.
That's over on Chestnut, right? That's over a block, right? So Chestnut, Walnut is the block. Chestnut is off a block. So you get some BC retailers there, right? And that's where you're getting a little low. But still, there's that whole block is lined with national retailers. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
Meaning, like, like you said, the Foot Lockers and the other ones. The other side of it is all the high-end retailers, right? So they all stay in the same area. But when one goes, because they're all driving the same traffic, they're all feeding off the same feed, right?
Yes.
They're all making money the same way. And this isn't just Philadelphia. Chicago got completely torpedoed this past weekend. That's another area on Michigan Avenue, which is very high-end, right? And more so than Philly, I can tell you that much. And a lot of other areas, the same situation happened. So when you start coming in, you start seeing board ups on blocks that are supposed to be the best blocks. I'm talking board ups like some of these may not reopen. Nobody said anything, but I mean, think about it. When you start doing the math on it, you say to yourself, well, the city's been closed down, the economy's crap. I mean, some of these retailers are going to start to do the math. And, when you start getting that kind of a cementing of a situation, all it does is just further drive prices down, further drive psyche down, further deteriorates consumer confidence, which is all going to aid in the larger thing I've been saying about the asset repricing. I just think we're in for a scenario that I mean, I don't think anybody could have anticipated the damage. Like the rioting damage. It was, I can't even explain to people what went on here. I think it was Friday or Saturday. I don't even remember because it's been a blur. It was like mayhem. I mean, it was mayhem. Like, I mean, I can see it from my, I'm in a building and I can see down onto Walnut Street, and it was.
Yeah. Mayhem. No, you saw fire. I mean, police vehicles on fire. It's crazy. I can't imagine you with your family.
It was mayhem. Like, I don't even think the news caught. I mean, I know around here in Philadelphia, they had news of people just looting and taking, going in and taking. I mean, I woke up Saturday morning to come out and take pictures of this just because
it was Sunday. It was Sunday, John.
Sunday. No, okay, Sunday, and because it was just such a shock. And when I told you this, when I got up at 7, I'm walking through the blocks with my kids and my wife, and there's people walking around with boxes because they woke up early that morning to go back in and loot the places even more. And these people are walking around with boxes of stuff, like it's just grabbing from this store, grabbing from that store, and just walking to their car because there was absolutely no concern whatsoever that somebody was going to get them. I mean, it was it was so surreal to watch because it seemed like it was just complete chaos, right? And, you say to yourself, if you're somebody, look, in any neighborhood, it doesn't matter this neighborhood, we're just painting a picture to explain what's going to happen.
Yes.
You know, how I feel the city of Philadelphia is going to have a very significant problem with this. This represents a very micro perspective to any city. You could plop this into any city in the United States, right?
Okay.
And you could apply the same scenario. But I'm just saying that it was the situation where, like, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. I mean, and you start digging into consumer confidence when it's already down. I don't know how that ends up playing out in assisting with opening this thing back up. I mean, if you go back to every one of our podcasts, we're just still at the doorstep. We're still at the doorstep, right? Because I mean, even up here in Philadelphia, they still haven't reopened.
Well,
I mean,
when you were in Florida, I think you have I don't know if your perspective was different because you were in Florida and you guys were opened. So coming over here, it's like,
it's. I mean, this isn't even an economy. I mean, we call to order dinner on a Saturday night from typical places. You got to call like 10 places to see what's open.
Oh wow!
I mean, I'm serious. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, you can go on Grubhub, one of those bigger ones, but half the restaurants listed on there aren't even operating, not even open. More than half, 70% of them aren't even operating. Then you go in and you start looking up specific places yourself. None of them are open. None of all those retailers that got ransacked, they weren't open.
Yeah.
All of them were closed. Some of them were smart and took all the material out. They're the only ones that were spared. Some of them took all their merchandise or whatever. Like there was a really high end luggage store that was down here that they took all the stuff out. That place looks stellar. It was completely untouched, right?
Yes.
Now, everything else got ransacked. Everything else that left stuff in there, they haven't even been open though. So you're talking about a situation. So now think about this. They haven't been back in 2 or 3 months. Nobody's been in any of them because it's been completely shut down. Now you can't bring them back. It was supposed to open back up in the next couple weeks. Can't bring them back now. Now you got to rebuild the whole inside because it's ransacked. Plus, you're going to wait for insurance to pay out, right? Now you're adding more time for that to be figured out, to rebuild it because it's been ransacked, to reimburse yourself for the merchandise stolen. Yes. And then you're trying to figure out the psychological scenario if you're a retailer, whether it be a big box one like these A retailers or a smaller one. Like, does this make sense? You know, am I safer out in suburbia? Right? And this
suburbia, you mean suburbia, your area?
Suburbia, any area. Every suburban area looks the same in the United States.
Correct. That's true. Yes.
It's the same builders going to outside every city. Toll Brothers, KB Homes, all Hovnanian, all of them. They all follow each other around the United States of America.
That is so true. Yes.
And the same commercial developers. They all do the same thing. It's all the same stuff, same people everywhere.
One takes the risk. They see it working. Then the other ones follow.
Yeah, but I mean, it's as the areas develop, right? The commercial infrastructure goes in, then the residential comes in. It's all the same recipe, right? I mean, they just wait for the areas to get developed enough, and they scale it out according to how long it's going to take to build a neighborhood. But I think from what I'm seeing, the psyche is that suburbia is safer now. So we're going back to an old school model of suburbia.
Yes.
Right? And what happens to the city, though, when it was suburbia-centric? Cities were not what cities are now.
Yes.
Cities were not generating the revenue that they were before. Cities were somewhat dilapidated, depending on your city.
I think about Newark. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. Sorry to cut you off, John, but just an example. I came into this country in 1989. I grew up in Newark by the cathedral. For those of you who know that area. There were projects all over. And then they brought down those projects, Jay, throughout the years. Newark was getting better and better. The next thing you know, businesses in Newark and downtown Newark, law firms, everything. I used to work at a law firm back in 2004 called Gibbons Del Dale. And you're right there next to the Penn Station in Newark. And everything was up. And now Newark has a Whole Foods. Newark has a Starbucks. Even Shaquille O'Neal got like a $40 million apartment complex in there. So it's booming up. And they had a protest on, I believe, Saturday, but it was peaceful because Newark already had a riot back in 1967. So it took 50 years for it to get to the point to where it's at right now. So it can take a long time, Jay.
No, listen,
Look, one of the good things that Newark obviously has going for it is that it was right outside of New York too, right? So I mean, you're getting a lot of people that don't want to pay city prices that close to the city, and they obviously can use that to their advantage. Plus, I'm sure they're uber sensitive because from what I understand, and I'm not an expert, the riots that went on in Newark back then were awful. They were terrible.
Yes.
And there's probably a significant level of sensitivity there. A lot of these other areas haven't seen riots in a long time, and specific areas haven't seen them at all, right?
Yes.
But I'm speaking more from the perspective of there's people of the individual that moves here, right? There's people that have lived in the city their whole life that aren't fazed by this stuff. Like I've lived in the city forever, right? So I went to school at Temple University in North Philadelphia. I mean, this stuff doesn't. It's eye-opening, but it's not like it changes my opinion on that.
On
right?
the city, yes.
Yeah, because the city is the city. I love the city. I love everything the city has to offer. But the people that waited till the end, when everything looked beautiful, when crime was all the way down, and you know what I mean? Like, and they waited to find that neighborhood, and their friends were moving here, and the old people, whose kids moved out, they wanted to downsize, and they loved the culture of the city. Those are the people that aren't coming back, and they might be down here, but this is the one thing that changes their mind because they were already tepid about it in the first place, right? So these are the people that you see start selling, right? Nah, we can't be exposed to this. We can't be around this. This is crazy. Just the sheer thought of it because they didn't anticipate it, that was a possibility, right? They didn't anticipate the fact that there would be this kind of mayhem that could exist, right? And then they look out, it goes along. It's the same vibe as the coronavirus. Same idea, right? Same idea with the fact that you get out in the suburbs and the people aren't locked down nearly as badly, right?
Yes.
So it's almost like it's lending to the same thought process. You're just reaffirming it with a different action. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's only going to exacerbate what was already probably in play. And I think as a result of that, you're going to see the things that we've talked about earlier probably just continue to roll off. And the fact that
I got a question, Jay, because you were doing the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program loans and all that.
I was helping clients.
You were helping clients
disaster loans,
with those disaster loans, getting people loans and all that stuff.
Right.
So what about if the business is no longer, your business is fried, your business went on fire? What do you do?
What you mean for somebody that gets the actual loan, that obtains the loan?
Yeah. And they were in these big cities.
And their business burnt down?
And their business burnt down because of...
Yeah, so here's the conversation you're going to have, though. The conversation is that you're naturally going to have insurance, right?
Yes.
I mean, your landlord there at one of those locations isn't going to allow you to operate there without insurance. And I don't even think whether you're in the city or in the suburbs, they're not going to let you operate without some kind of fire insurance, some kind of content insurance, right? Which is going to reimburse you for that. But here's the problem.
Okay.
The problem is that when you get a commercial insurance, it's not like when you have a leaky roof of your house and you call Allstate and the guy shows up, adjuster shows up the next day.
Correct.
And they cut you the check the third day, right? It's not like that with commercial insurance, especially if there's a run on it, right? Where you're sitting in a situation like this where 25,000 square foot retail operations have been ransacked and the damage could be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. They run full-on investigations. They run full-on. It's not quick. These people could be waiting weeks, months to get the checks for this, right? Small business, big business, etc., in an effort to make sure that this is a situation that was, that was properly hedged against, because negligence is something that insurance companies utilize constantly as a way of getting out of having to pay. And if they're sitting on a huge, lump sum that they have to pay out, this is a way to slow it down, right? Because insurance companies are effectively just larger Ponzi schemes, right? You pay them. And they know
just in case.
The model is you pay them. It's Ponzi scheme isn't the right term, but it's really the idea of it. How they operate. That's how they operate, right? You pay them premiums, and they base it off of risk. So they all these risk underwriters that determine the risk associated with all these things that they're insuring. So they always know what return they need to get on the premiums that they're carrying, so that they don't ever run into a deficiency of money to pay out. You understand what I mean? So that the model is you take in more than you pay out. You do well off of that if you're doing it among 300 million people. Now they turn around and they invest that stuff into apartment buildings, and they get fixed assets and things like that in order to get a return on the money they have sitting that are the fees. But anytime there's a run on things like this, they go out and they up your insurance rates, to help pay for whatever happened. It happens when hurricanes hit. It happens when things like this hit across the nation, because there's 3 or 4 big insurers, right?
Yes.
That exist, that do a majority of the insurance work in this entire country. So the point I'm trying to make in that broad, there wouldn't be a situation where that would come into play, because the conversation from the SBA will be, well, why wouldn't you go back and rebuild? And I think the one thing that people are realizing now is that they're just not sure if they want to do it, because it goes back to the consumer confidence issue, right?
Okay.
There's just so much going on right now with people, and there's so much uncertainty. We went from a period of the end of last year and the beginning of this year in January, where the certainty that existed in this country was at an all-time, the consumer confidence and people's certainty relating to just everything economic related was close to an all-time high, right? So then to turn around over the next 4 or 5 months and get hit with a pandemic coupled with, this horrible, act that happened in Minnesota on Wednesday, which was rightly so, followed by protests, which ultimately turned into riots, which are resulting in a lot of economic damage. People are just asking themselves what makes the most sense right now, right?
Yes.
And there's just the uncertainty is working its way around. And I think when you're dealing with people that aren't used to having to deal with large decisions like that on a regular basis, it can be mind blowing. You know what I mean?
So John, when you go through the adjuster and you get that check, of insurance for your business, you got to go and see where else you're going to put your business at. Do you set up shop?
That's assuming your landlord lets you out, right? I mean, the idea is the landlord, if it's burnt down, the landlord would have to, depending on whatever policy was set up, the landlord would have to rebuild it, right? And if they don't have the ability, and the rebuild's going to take a while, you still have to earn, right?
Oh, wow.
So I mean, yeah, it's a real.
I'm thinking you could just go and bounce, and that's it. But no,
it's a real conversation. But it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I mean, I said that earlier. It gets to the point where the retailers are saying, should I even be here? Should I even waste my time here? Should I just say, you know what, forget it. I'm gonna take the same business that was functional here and operable here, and I'm gonna move it out to the burbs. I'm gonna move it out to a safe neighborhood in the burbs, and I don't have to have this conversation again. I'm not gonna deal with this BS, and and that gives them immediate peace of mind, right?
Yes.
And it gives them immediate certainty in an uncertain environment. And that's what I'm trying to say about this. Just could be an exacerbation and cementing of what people were already thinking. I got another call. I think I told you this last week when we did the podcast, that I couldn't tell you how many calls from people over the last month since this whole Corona thing started about people wanting to move down to Florida now, right?
Yes. Actually, Glenn Byers just on Facebook. Glenn. He just commented that I spoke with John yesterday. What's happening in Philly is happening here in Palm Beach. Ludos destroyed Palm Beach outlets. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's like, I got another call from an associate of mine last Wednesday, and he's like, "Look, me and my family are moving out Coral Springs because I'm done with this." He goes, and we started getting them approved. He's like, and this is the psychology, and these are like, these are people that are well-established professionals, right?
Yes.
This isn't just some guy that doesn't have any kids that's, can just pick up and leave. These are people that are making life-altering decisions in an effort to just get out of this kind of a scenario that they see in here and the uncomfortability associated with it. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a very real possibility that this could be what cities should expect. It's just a period of economic decline that comes along with this kind of behavior. I can tell you, though, it's not unnatural for there to be corrections in markets, right? When you've had 6 or 7 golden years, I mean, it's not uncommon for you to get a correction in asset prices, a correction in perspective, a correction in all this stuff. It just happens. It's the way it is, like I've always talked about. So I don't think it should be that unexpected. I just think when you're the city of Philadelphia and you rely, and I'm speaking again, just have more than tons of the people here don't have any relevance to Philadelphia, and that's understandable. I'm just using it as because I know Philly well. Is that, like a lot of cities in this country, they run a tight budget, man,
Yes.
And that revenue they get from the sales tax, the business privilege tax, the real estate tax, that's what keeps them all afloat.
Yes.
So when you start cutting, and they build budgets based around that. So if you've had an increased revenue stream for the last 6 or 7 years, and then you anticipate that this is going to be maybe the beginning of a downturn, I mean, what do you think happens then?
Would rentals for commercial, you think those rental markets, when no one is there, you think those rental markets go down for commercial?
Inevitably, sure, but there's a certain number that they have to hit, right? There's a certain number that they have to hit. See, this goes back to conversations we've had before where we say that the asset prices have been so expensive over the last couple of years that people buy high. Right now, depending who the buyer is, even these really expensive commercial buildings down here, they're doing it for a fixed income perspective, right? So there's a return attached to it. So let's just say they spend $5 million on a building, and that building's generating, I don't know, the cap's really low because here the caps are terrible because the prices are too high. But the fact of the matter is, let's say it's generating $25,000 a month in rent times 12 is, roughly $300,000, right? On a $5 million purchase, you're making a 6% return gross, right?
Yes.
Well, they're doing that for a reason because either they represent some kind of a fund or an insurance company, depending, or any kind of entity. So when you start getting to a situation where it starts going below the threshold that was anticipated by the fund, those funds have certain requirements. If it is a fund, if it's an individual investor, they're going to be looking at it the same way, though. See, individual investors are more emotional about the decisions they make, right?
Yes.
They start looking into things, and they can move a lot quicker than a fund would. A fund works strictly, in a lot of cases, strictly from the numeric element of it, right? So when you start to see rents go down, and they're having to scale that down, the first decision is, all right, this asset isn't producing anymore. Much like a stock, it's time to get out. Then you'll start to see them sell.
Oh, wow. Right? That's right.
And then you'll start to see, because it's methodical.
But it's not going to happen ASAP, you say, because it's real estate.
No. It doesn't happen ASAP. These are things like we've talked about before. It's just scaling out over the course of time. This is how things unwind, right? And this is how you get back to a place of normalcy, a place of functional economic levels associated with the new economy that has come into play, right? So if Philadelphia starts to pull back, which I anticipate, much like a lot of cities in this country, you'll start to see the economic activity and everything else pull back with it. It's just the way it works. Or actually, the economic activity will lead Philadelphia pulling back, but just generally speaking, it's just a natural asset repricing that will fall more in line with the revenues and the incomes in the city and what the city can demand relative to the other factors that are going on. And I do think that you'll start to see stuff. I mean, I think there'll be it breeds a fear element that I don't think everybody is comfortable with. You understand what I mean?
Well, like you say, you go to Florida. I mean, you have two places that you live in, and you usually stay here all the whole summer, and then you go back to Florida. So the reason you're leaving, why is it that you're leaving? Because it's, the style, the way of life.
I got two kids, two young kids, and when they see, they see this kind of stuff. I mean, this is stuff that could potentially impact them, and their psyche, right? And I got to be really delicate about stuff like that. So, I mean, this is something that I just don't, if it continues to go on, like the damaging part of it. I mean, you want to obviously instill in them, and let them know how important the message is, right? And that what happened was absolutely wrong, and that it's completely unjustifiable under any circumstance. And the protesting is right, and the fact of what they're protesting is absolutely right.
Yes.
But they can't. My kids are 9 and 4, right? They look at this stuff and they can't differentiate. They saw all that stuff the other night because it started relatively early. They just see violence, right? They see craziness, and it breeds fear, right? And I'm not gonna expose them to that, just given the fact that there's flexibility. There's just no definitive time frame on when it's going to get under control and how it can continue to spiral.
Yes.
So that's why we're going back down, just want to expose my kids to it. But at the same time, I'm very grateful that I have the ability to go back down there. But there's a lot of people that are here with kids that are trying to shield their kids from it, right? Because it's the same reason I'm trying to go down there, because it's just not a good look, which lends to what I was explaining earlier about people just not being comfortable. I mean, there's just unrest, right? There's general unrest between the pandemic and up here. I mean, as far as unrest.
Well, we can't forget about people not having jobs either. It's like 30 million
that's
people.
What I'm saying. There is just a massive amount of uncertainty. There's more uncertainty that exists in today for the average worker than has existed. I couldn't even imagine. There's just so many variables of uncertainty that exist. It's hard to even understand. I mean, the one good thing, I talked to a client today from Connecticut, and the one good thing is you see situations where they have the ability to prolong their mortgage payment, prolong their school loan payments, prolong their auto payment. So they have all these concessions, plus they can collect unemployment. Normally it's more than their that'll help prop things up for a period of time, but that's not going to help alleviate some of these other variables, right?
Yes.
It can help acquiesce of the liquidity issue, and can help acquiesce the perspective on the financial side and buy some time. But now you plop this situation into it, right? As far as Just the uncertainty and the fear relating to rioting, and that could transpire for somebody that's just not totally city bred,
Yes.
and it can be tough. I think that
Oh, imagine the people that grew up in Arkansas and got a job in New York City, and next thing you know, they see this.
That's what I'm saying, though. That's an example that I think is extreme. I think you could just talk about somebody that grew up just outside of any city, didn't really hang out in the city, didn't go to the city much, but they found out that the city was cool and they came down, they fell in love with it, they moved down here,
Yes.
and all they've had is roses and dandelions for the last couple of years, right?
Yes.
And then you see something like this, which is a part of city life. It's just the way it is, man. You live in a city, this is what you deal with.
Yes.
And it's just outside of their purview, and it's an uncomfortability that they're not willing to sustain. And I think that it's a fact that this will, over the course of time, as things continue to unwind, because there's a lot of the perspectives are, well, let's see the city open back up, let's see how it opens back up. And I think if this city even, I think the opening here is going to be a lot tougher. I mean, like I said, you go down to Florida now, and you're talking about, it's back at this really, really high capacity relative to a lot of these northeastern states. So
after a couple of weeks of a couple of days, hopefully this all goes down, and then we'll get back to normal.
But I think there's going to be an imprinting of what transpired. You know what I mean? Like I think there's that element when you read that element in as a possibility in somebody's psyche, right? I think that's something that doesn't leave because there's the potential of that happening, right? So maybe something like that, I can guarantee. Look, I've lived down here for a long time, and I've seen and kind of think you could possibly imagine down here in that period of time. So, understanding that that's part of living in the city is nothing outside of normal to me. But if somebody just moved here 3 years ago and it's a 75-year-old couple, right, who stayed out of the city their entire lives and they moved down here just to, downsize and go out at night and have good restaurants and everything like that right before the virus, what do you think they're doing? They're hiding in their closet right now. You know what I mean? I mean, it's stuff like that I don't think is getting taken into consideration. And I think things like that and instances like that where you're kind of relying on the progression of the city, right, and everything that it entailed to,
right now I got Andrew Johnson, who is a bus driver in Minnesota. He also does credit repair. He bought our professional do-it-yourself credit repair system. And he's telling me right now, we on the front lines with it here in Minnesota. And I asked him, is he working? Because he's a bus driver. He says, hauling protesters and police, bro. That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
That's not normalcy for him, or people working in those areas is crazy.
Yeah, no, I can't even imagine. I mean, I'm dealing in a much smaller, isolated situation. I mean, Philly's big, but I mean that city's been hit. It's as far as the rioting and the burning and stuff. But again, I fully support
you lost his train of thought.
I fully support why they're protesting and all that stuff. I mean, I think it's what you want to do when there's catastrophes like that and they're so unjust. But I just think as a result of, and I don't think the protesting is I think it's just the element, at least on here, of the damage, right, and just how it came on quick and stuff like that you're seeing just is in the areas is that's where the shock is. And I think again a lot of cities are probably going to be feeling it, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I certainly hope that's not the case. I hope, like I say all the time, I hope some of the stuff that I scale out is not right. I've been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot. I'm pretty sure I'm very well versed when it comes to the economy and how things kind of operate because I've seen a lot of these things transpire. I just think that I think it's inevitable with all the things that are going on right now that more than likely, that's the case. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I think that, we normalize everything, meaning like eventually, regardless of how crazy any situation is, we naturally normalize it because that's what our brains are kind of accustomed to, right?
Yes.
So over the course of time, we'll normalize any situation. We'll normalize wearing masks on our face even when we know that those masks, we've been told repeatedly that those masks don't help prevent us from getting sick. They help prevent the person now. We've been told different stories, but we still wear the masks, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, that's
Normalize
true.
that now. 3 months ago, could you imagine telling somebody 3 months later that they're going to be walking out of the house wearing a mask?
No. If you're wearing a mask, you're about to go rob somebody.
Exactly. But we've normalized to the point now where people just plop them on when they come out of the house.
Oh, I can't leave without it. I can't leave without a
But
mask.
that's what I'm saying. So this is what we do. We normalize things. So there'll be a period of time where people will get back to normal, but it's not. Some of these images that people see, some of these things that transpire, they don't leave. And if you're a retailer and all you're doing is dealing with numbers, and the reason you picked Philadelphia was because it was on the incline. The reason you picked, Palm Beach was because it was on the incline. And then, you see everything giving you indications it's going to turn. I mean, you start to see some cracks in it, and those cracks become fault lines, and then things start to.
Can this happen, Jay? Chris Fotomara is our credit repair customer. He also owns a limousine company here in New Jersey. We're helping him. He said they will have to pay people to rent stores and other commercial properties taking percentage from the sales. What do you think about that?
Say that again. They'll have to pay people to rent stores.
Well, yeah, he said they will have to pay people to rent stores and other commercial properties taking percentage from sales. So he's saying, if you're going to rent here, I'm going to take a percentage of your sales. You think that'll happen?
Oh, you mean the landlord's going to say that?
The landlord, yeah.
Oh, they already do that in Florida.
Oh, I didn't know
They
that.
already do that where you pay rent and then they take a percentage of sales, or that's normally how they do it in really high traffic areas. Because in Florida, they got a lot of outdoor malls, right? Like Glenn was saying about the outlets.
Yeah,
and
the
they
outlets.
have like outdoor malls rather than indoor malls because, sunny there all year round, right? And when it rains, it's normally spotty unless it's a hurricane. So a lot of stuff's outside. So, I mean, what they do is because they're these huge monstrosities with, restaurants and, movie theaters and everything like that they normally will charge. The big ones will charge rent, and then on top of it, they'll charge a percentage of gross sales that they tax you on top of it. Now he's saying, I think if I understood correctly, I think he's saying they're just going to charge based on gross sales, and I don't see people in New York doing that. I just don't, because I think the people, if we're talking about New York, right? But I think that there's going to be a situation where something's going to give. And I think ultimately it's going to be the asset price, because these landlords, especially the larger ones, they're not going to take a loss. That's not what they're in business for. And a lot of, when you get outside of New York City, where there's really 4 or 5 guys that own almost a majority of the square footage in Manhattan, right? I'm not talking about the boroughs, but there's 4 or 5 big operations that own a majority of the square footage there. When you get out of there, get into normal areas where it's a little more distributed, it's going to be very difficult for the individual landlord to be like, yeah, you know what? Even if it's a guy that owns 50 properties, right? It's going to be difficult for him to be like, we'll just work on your gross sales. Then you got to change your whole business model, and the business model has to be around trusting that this guy's giving you the right financials, and then he's not trying to play game, put up another can of worms. And honestly, in a lot of the cases with these landlords, it's better to say, you know what, I'm just going to sell it then. If I can't get what I need, and I got equity in it, I can recoup the equity, and which goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? I mean, you work from a path of least resistance in anything, and although I think what he's saying happens, and it's possible it could happen, especially like in Palm Beach, one of our good friends owns like 4 restaurants in Palm Beach, right? And the one place he pays, it's right on Worth. The restaurant's right on Worth. He pays like $55,000 a month or something.
Whoa.
In rent, and he was like, man, I'm going to have to go back and tell him I can only do it off sales, because, the restaurant business is only anticipating to recoup about 50% of the volume they were doing before. So, I mean, if you happen to be doing $5.6 million worth of gross sales at that particular location, if you're fortunate, you might be able to hit 50, 60% of that, right? So therefore, obviously, with tight margins that exist in the restaurant business to begin with, you're talking about a situation where they'd have to, because they wouldn't be able to sustain it. They were sustaining it based on a certain amount they were making before. So I definitely think, especially on the high end, that's going to happen. I think on the lower end, meaning monetary amount, I think where there's more individual owners and stuff that don't have the flexibility, because the more they provide you, the more they're being financially harmed individually rather than
like a fund.
What's that?
A fund?
No, I'm saying a fund is more is larger. They may have a little more flexibility if they can still get to that number, right? So,
yes.
for instance, if you're that restaurant I was explaining, it does $55,000. That's rent was $55,000, right? And they come back and they're doing, let's say for the next 6 months they do, a couple $100,000 a month, and they can squeeze out, a good percentage based on gross sales, and they have a history that may work for them, right? But when you get down to like a smaller operation that has maybe 3 or 4 units in their commercial, and it's a nail salon, a pizza shop, something else, that guy's not going to have the ability to work off of gross sales, right?
Yes.
He's just not going to, because he's going to be harming himself. Not to mention, if he gives the concession, he's going to be harming himself. So they don't have the same luxuries, and as a result of that, you're not going to see the ability to be able to do that, in my opinion. And I think you're going to see people that either they're going to try and sell in order to get out, and then reassess, and then see where the market readjusts itself over the course of time. But keep in mind, again, just to repeat, this doesn't happen overnight. This stuff happens over time, and like I said, I think going into the end of this year, going to early next year, I think we'll be nice and propped up with the stimulus money that's out there and the money that the SBA painted the walls with for businesses. But I think, you're going to get into a situation where a lot of this stuff will start to present itself, because it's inevitable. It's just inevitable. I mean, it's just, with unemployment where it is, these new things coming into the situation, along with the existing things that were already in the situation, along with, our entire country, a majority of our country is running on, Federal Reserve injection and government money, you know?
Yes.
And that's not gonna continue to go on forever. So
printing money. That's all we're doing.
But they're doing, and listen, I think they have to do it, so it's the right thing to do, right? But at the same time, it's a situation where they're not going to endlessly do it, right? We're a $22, $23 trillion economy, and they've already, we've already gotten out, 7 or 8
trillion?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're talking about we're getting dangerous, and they're trying to now sell treasury bonds to help finance this. But guess who's the one that get to ultimately pay that back?
Us.
Yeah. So that means tax rates will start to go up over the course of time. When tax rates go up, individual tax rates, obviously that's less money coming home. That's less money to put back into buying a house, getting a car. So, I mean, all this stuff, if you really sit down, and I try not to put too much into this. I know I talk fast and I bring up a lot of topics that maybe I try to talk.
You think property taxes are going to go up because of all this in those areas that got hit hard?
No, but if you go back to what I said earlier, no, because when property taxes drop, it works off a millage rate. They don't just pull the number out of nowhere.
Okay.
So they work off of an assessed value. Other properties get reassessed here if it's running in a functioning economy. Okay. And not all of them are like that, but most of them, what will happen is as the real estate values drop, the assessed value will drop, which based on that same millage rate will lower your real estate taxes. It should, in theory, but don't be surprised if some new legislation gets passed, if that's going to happen, if there's a sweep of values dropping where they keep your taxes the same because they can't afford to do anything else. They may not afford to be able to do that. I mean, who knows? I know here in Philly,
do you know anything about what was Foot Locker? Like, when you saw Foot Locker and it was being, raided, right? Not raided, looted. Ransacked, looted, whatever. If you're corporate, your corporate Foot Locker, and you look at, your area, would you want, what do you have to look at in order to say, okay, I'm going to put the store there and I'm going to be successful if I open up, let's say July? Do you think they're going to be, with the economy the way it is and all that? Do you think it's
I think that they're going to open back up?
Yeah.
That Foot Locker's been there forever.
Oh.
So I don't think that Foot Locker's going anywhere. That Foot Locker was there when the neighborhood wasn't even good. So it wasn't as good. So, I mean, I don't think that particular Foot Locker's going anywhere. Philadelphia is a city loves sneakers, like a lot of cities, and they sell well. So I don't think that's not more what I'm talking about when I.
You think Foot Locker got the PPP?
No, it's a publicly traded company. Publicly traded company that took money, got publicly shamed, and had to give it back. If you remember.
Yes.
So I mean, the thing with publicly traded companies is that they have the access to all kinds of credit and debt. That they can bond, they can raise money through bonds. Obviously, they can do another raise on the equity side. They can issue new shares. There's all types of convertible debt that they can offer to investors. And Foot Locker is a good company. And it's very popular with the sale of shoes going up, right? As it has been steadily, and with sneakerheads and everything. So they have more access to capital. They would have no reason to go to the PPP to raise money. So no, I don't think. I think even if they wanted to, they would ultimately have gotten shamed out of it. But I don't think they did. And I know they did, because every publicly traded company got called out, and the ones that took the money gave it all back just because somebody got access to somehow, some way, all the companies that shouldn't have taken the money and did, and that's how they got their spot blown up. That's why you saw, like, in one given week, you saw like 5 or 6 big companies, right? Like Shake Shack,
yes,
Chris, LA Lakers. I mean, it was crazy. You're talking about companies that LA Lakers are the most valuable franchise in professional sports. They're valued at like $4 billion or something ridiculous like that, and they went and got $10 million from the PPP. Now they give it back, but you say to yourself, that's $10 million that could have gone in somebody else's pocket in that first tranche, right?
Yes.
And it's unfortunate, but no. To answer the question, I don't.
The reason I bring up the PPP is because I had 2 customers, which we gave a quote for credit repair, and the other customer was Karima. I don't know if she emailed us. I don't know if you saw that email from Karima that we helped her before, a returning customer. Helped her with her credit. She put up a business. It so happens that she moved and she still had her little business, but the business, with the COVID, it went down. She asked for the PPP. She got denied because of her credit, Jay. And then I got another customer who does loan modifications, has her office and everything here in Jersey. She also has she has over 20 negative accounts on each bureau, so it definitely needs to work on her credit. But she didn't get the PPP because of her credit. Why?
Yeah, I didn't hear any credit requirements on the PPP. I heard credit requirements on the disaster loan. I heard it was 570. I mean, I saw it was 575 was the minimum. A lot of them. I haven't.
Maybe it was that loan. That's why they didn't get it. But when I was talking to them,
the PPP is basically an advance. It's almost like a merchant cash advance, except you're not paying the juice on it. They're floating it to you with the idea that they're basing it off of payroll, and then you're paying it back accordingly, right? So
yes.
I don't know about Karima, because we've cleaned her file like 6 years ago or something. So I don't know what happened.
No, she's gonna email us because she wants to start again. So,
but whatever the case, I mean, it's a situation that is they're definitely still lending, and like I said, they're still pumping them out, and the amounts that they're peppering is more than people are asking for, and they're doing it for good reason. And the amortizations are much longer.
Chris Fotomaras just said he didn't get the SBA loan, only the advance he got. So he got that advance that you say.
Yeah, he got the advance. So what happened was, when people were submitting for the disaster loans, they could ask for the quick advance when they submitted it, and then they would be able to see what they ultimately were approved for after, right? When they went through full underwriting. So, or whatever they call full underwriting, right? In that situation. So I guess, I don't know. I didn't even know he submitted. I'm just being now made aware of it. But I can only imagine, because I know his score is well above the threshold.
And his business does well. His business, the taxi business, but he has a bunch of businesses. So, which business you got the advance on, Chris? Was it the limousine business that you have, or which one? Also, I got somebody, Bobby O'Neill, saying, I don't think you guys know the horror COVID is about to inflict on the USA. The protests mean it will spread exponentially. Stay safe, people.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that. I mean, I don't know the science element of it. So unfortunately, I hope that's not the case. Just like I hope a lot of these values don't drop. I just think there's so many variables that exist right now, and they're all coming together at a similar time. I think they're just going to lend to.
We're going to find out in 2 weeks if people got COVID, because it's going to take 2 weeks for people to get, the virus in their system. So all this going on right now, we're going to see if it, did something for, mess people's immune system.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, I say this all the time, but I think the one good thing is that people are the people that come to us are coming to position themselves, which is good. So they'll prepare themselves for whatever comes on the financial side. If it stays business as usual and everything, just flattens out and asset prices don't reset and everything comes back in the next couple months, it's like it didn't happen. It's a blip. I did that. Which I think is the most ideal scenario in the situation. That's great. They still have the ability to buy, right? They're positioning themselves properly.
Yes.
If everything plays out like I expect the unwinding will probably be, then they're still prepared. They're positioning themselves properly. So I think just positioning yourself properly to take advantage of whatever opportunity or utilize whatever opportunity presents itself relative to what the overall broader goals are, I think is good. And I think it's good that people are being proactive like that because they see the potential for opportunity or the potential for, a chance that they can capitalize on goals that they've had for a long time now. So I mean, I think that part of it is great. I just think that I cringe really, and I try not to push my my thought process too hard because my goal is always to just give everybody a perspective that maybe they don't look at it that's in more depth, right?
Yes,
that looks at it from every single angle and every single scenario, gives you all the background on it. And then you can let people make the decision that they want to make that they think is sees fit, but they're looking at it through the right set of lenses, right? And then my lenses tell me that, there's going to be room for these asset prices to drop. And as a result, I cringe when I see people go and buy FHA right now in certain markets because it's like, man, you're financing almost 100% of it, plus you have to pay 5% closing costs. Right, so in essence, by the time you're done buying that $300,000 house that was appraised at $300,000, you're literally upside down with the closing costs. Right, if you put 3% down, that's $9,000 down. That means your loan amount's $291. If you got 5% in closing costs, it's $15,000-16,000. That means you're into the property for $306.
And people added to that loan.
Well, they don't add it, but it's just what your out-of-pocket cost is, right?
Oh,
so it's going to be what your effective cost on the property is and what, you're ultimately into it for. That thing zigs. You drop 10%, the house is now worth $270, right? And then you have to, if you decide you want to sell it, you got to pay another 6 points plus transfer tax to the realtor. So that $270 really becomes, after another 8% on $270, that's what, $21, $249. And you're into it for $306. If you go to the $270, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't, I just think there's safe ways to buy. There's safe ways to prepare, position yourself and get ready. And I just don't know in the market that's this uncertain and this toppy that it's the best idea. But I mean, to each his own. Like I said earlier, there's people that have to buy in certain instances. They don't have a choice. They want to live there forever.
But I think these city folk, Jay, these city folk are going to want to move into suburbia areas, and they're going to want to buy or rent for like 2 years or 3 years before they buy.
I think the rent, I absolutely believe too. I'm glad you brought that up, that I think the people wanting to rent is going to be a real thing, because I think people are kind of, they were fixated, going back to what I was talking about earlier, fixated on what the perspective was, right? They used to live in their suburbs. They sold their house. They moved down to the city. They bought all in, right?
Yes.
The city was great. All it did was up. Now this happens. Now it's like the whole mind's blown, right? Head spinning. Like, well, all these new things that they didn't have to experience for the last 5-6 years. All these new things that is part of living in the city, but they weren't from the city and they don't know about the city, and now they're in the city and now they're really living like they're in the city, right? Not like some television show. So it's like, I do think that you could see a move out to the suburbs and there'd be more rental on that side because people are undecided still, right? There's so much uncertainty without certainty, existing in perspectives, then people can't be absolute about what they want to do, and there's just so much uncertainty relating to income, relating to just general safety, relating to...
And you know what? You talk about this, but we haven't even gotten into what politics could do to this.
Yeah, again, another great point. If Trump loses, I mean, Trump is Wall Street's... he is the reason the market took off, because they know he's deregulatory.
Yes.
He's very much pro-economy.
Yes.
He rolls back everything. He wants to...
Entrepreneurs, new businesses.
Every tax laws, everything is designed to pump the economy, put money in people. When you get a Democrat in there, it is you're talking about Trump, it's on one spectrum. If you get Biden in there, that's a totally different spectrum. That will immediately force its sell-off, right? Just for that, because they're factoring in going to go up, right? All those regulations that were rolled back are going to go up, right? You're gonna go back to overregulating banking. You're gonna overregulate oil. You're gonna overregulate energy. You're gonna overregulate all these other areas, right? Which limits revenue. Which
Yes.
overall, obviously, that puts back to the market, starts to pull back the market. So you're absolutely right. I mean, it's without question the political side of this could really impact things. I think even with Trump, though, that in office on the economic side of things, I think that you're still going to see. You're still going to see this repricing, right? I think it's inevitable just because you can only push a bull market so long, and it's just natural what happens. And obviously, there's very clear economic things that are here. It's not just me pulling it out of thin air based on, the wind swinging in a certain direction that day. There's a lot of economic variables that lead to that conclusion, which we've talked about at length, and we've talked about some today. But I do think you're right, though. The political element of this is real, and I think that could be another thing that could really force. It could impact the market, which could impact lending, which could impact everything, right?
Okay.
So just more uncertainty. Right?
We didn't. This podcast, what? Real estate, finance, economics, and then boom, politics. John schooling us.
Think about that though. So that's kind of holding, to a certain degree, you're kind of holding the market hostage, right? Until November anyway. Even if things get back to normal, which I don't think they're going to, but I think we're gonna have to crawl back, to hopefully have some semblance. If we can have unemployment in the low double digits, I think by December, I think that would be a victory, right? I think that would be a victory if we get, by the end of the year, got to have unemployment at 11, 12%. I think that would be a victory. And that, I don't know if that's going to happen. That would be optimistic, in my opinion. And even then, you're talking about you're extracting 1 to 2 buyers out of a 10-person buyer base in a consumer-driven economy, right? So all these things, you say to yourself, you just got to be aware of them. And again, I try not to sound doom and gloom, but these are all things that come into play when you're making any kind of financial decision, right? It allows you to understand why this happens and understand why that happens, or why you're seeing this occur and that occur, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah. Okay, so Chris got the loan for the transportation business. I got Andrew. I was chuckling a little bit with his comment. He says, I hear a lot of people were saying, why couldn't the Equifax building be burned down in Atlanta? Would that have any effect on the bureaus burning down? Just to get clarification for the one saying that.
No, but that's crazy. But no, because their servers are probably, again.
You think everything is in the cloud with them too?
I think that they have their own servers and it's probably housed remotely. But on top of that fact, it's all algorithmically, right? So you can burn down whatever you want. They only have, I think Equifax has like 8,000 employees total. They're not, and they outsource their customer service. Most of those employees are sales side and fraud related, right?
Yes.
So you're talking about the actual location that you're referencing is nothing more than paper pushing. So you'd be probably burning down a building that didn't deserve it. But no, I don't think that would assist in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Unfortunately, for whoever asked.
So Chris Fotomaras on Facebook is saying, so a better option will be 20% down payment to buy a home.
I don't know if that's a better. You're still exposing your money whether you're borrowing it or not. So you put 20% down, you're still into it for the same amount of money. You buy $300,000 house, put 20% down, you're still into it for $300,000 between the mortgage and the money you put down. You still add 5% closing costs on it, so you're still effectively into it, either out of pocket or the mortgage and closing costs for $315. It's still the same numbers. You're just financing less, so it might be a difference between 17% on that is about $51,000, right? Or 51,000 at 3%. It's like a difference of $150 payment. It's not that. I'm saying that obviously, let's just say same scenario and use what he said. You put 20% down and you're financing, on 300,000 to 40, right? And then you decide that the neighborhood's dumping and you're not interested in hanging around, and you see values dropping and you sell the 270, right? Like same scenario, same exact scenario, and they take 8% off the top for 6% for the realtor, 2% for transfer tax. You know, you're in there for $249. You walked away with $9,000 after you put down $75,000. You took a $68,000 hit. You were just able to get out. That's the difference. You didn't have to short sell it, or you didn't have to negotiate with your bank. You were just able to get out at that point, and you got $9,000 of your $75,000 you put down. So, I mean, your cost is your cost, right? When you buy it, out of pocket, obviously, cash is, you know, included in that. You don't want to just, you know, mail your cash in. You know, you don't want to treat. You want to make sure when you're selling that, you're calculating that on the resale. You want to make sure you protect your cash when you buy a property.
Yes. All right, Chris, because I know Chris wants to buy a house too. I got someone here, Cam Barker on YouTube. The world has their own problems. America, please stop importing your affairs to other countries. Now, that just brings me to say, how are other investors looking at us now, Jay? Like outside, out of the country. You know, I hear of people like Chinese investors or people in Saudi Arabia. They just come over here and they buy stuff cash. How's it looking for them to just come over here looking to invest?
I mean, right now, I mean, as far as our economy globally is still the best economy, right? That's even if things we're hitting mayhem and we're hitting a point is we have the best companies in the world. You know, the second largest economy obviously is China, right? And
yes.
and most of their successful companies are just mimics of ours, right? Alibaba is their version of Amazon. I mean, TikTok is their version of Facebook, just with a deviation. I mean, they just mimic the stuff that we do to replicate our economy because of the success of it. Just That's the reason why you see their money come in, pour into our economy. That's why you see other nations come in their economy, because we have a stable economy, much more stable than other areas in the real estate market. When it's glowing, right? So they do it as a safe haven. That's the idea of it. Now, in times of uncertainty like this, people go to cash, right? Because that's the idea. That's uncertainty. You know, they typically don't. You start to see them deliquidate. So, for instance, just to give you an example, in Palm Beach on the island, right, where all the billionaires live, right?
What's it called? What's that?
It's called Palm Beach Island.
Oh, it's at Palm Beach. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so there's like an island right over the bridge from downtown from downtown West Palm, and you know they're right there on the. You know, not everybody that's in there's a billionaire, right? Just there's the billionaires row, which is right on the ocean, right?
Like J-Lo or somebody living there or something like that.
Who?
J-Lo.
No. I'm talking real billionaires.
Oh,
I'm talking about like billionaires, right? Not celebrities. I'm talking people that are like business billionaires, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
with yachts, people with yachts.
These houses change hands for $100 million. The difference is that they come and you'll see investors from Canada, from China, etc., buy houses there because it's one of the nicest areas, right?
Who doesn't want to live in Palm Beach, Jay? Hello.
Correct. Yeah, but they're already of that stature, right? Where they have the house here and there. The point I'm trying to make is that you see them, a lot of cash transactions transpire during that period of time. So what they'll do is they'll take cash from a 1031, which is effectively when they sell something, they'll go buy a house on the water in Palm Beach because they assume it's going to hold its value, right?
Yes.
It's a safe play. You go buy it. It's a vanity play and it's an investment and it's a safe play, right? Plus, they can go take the cash from the 1031. Let's say it's $100 million. They buy a $90 million house, right? They don't pay any tax on that. They open up a line of credit against that for 70%. They get access to 70% of that cash. They get to write off the interest from that $70 million they just took out, and all the while they pay no income tax on it, right? The point I'm trying to make, though, is the fact that when you start to see uncertainty happen, you see all those houses flip off for sale. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Not all of them, but you see the ones that changed hands over the last couple of years as a result of the run-up. You start to see them back on the market because those are the people that bought it as a safe haven. They're going to get out. They want to get access to all their cash at this point and find something else to put it in. So that's normally how you see a maneuver. Plus, you see a lot of foreign money coming into the United States stock market for obvious reasons. But to answer your original question, at times of heightened uncertainty, you start to see that flow of international money slow down, at least in the real estate side of things, because that same certainty doesn't exist, right?
Yes.
Did you understand what I was saying about the line of credit, though? Did you understand what I was trying to say about that?
That's what I'm like. These people are getting the line of credit on the 70, what? They pull out 70%?
All right, so let me do it slow.
Do it a little bit again, because these people are getting that education on how millionaires stay billionaires or billionaires stay millionaires.
So you turn around, you sell property. Let's say you own an investment property and you've owned it forever, and you turn around and sell it and you're somebody like those guys that are billionaires, and let's say you sell it and you make $80 million on it, right? Your taxation on that, your short-term capital gains is based on your ordinary income tax, or your long-term capital gains is typically around 15%, 12, 15%, right? So rather than paying on $80 million, having to pay $10 to $15 million out of that, they turn around and find an investment to put it into, right?
Yes.
Normally it's called a 1031 exchange, where you transfer it over. It's got to be a like asset. So if you got the money from real estate, you can put it into a real estate investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is they'll take the liquidity from that. They'll go buy a property, for instance, in this example in Palm Beach, for $80 million. Let's say the purchase was $80 million, just for easy numbers.
Okay.
They pay no tax on that. Okay, so they get a new asset now. They got out of the other one. They owe nothing on the new asset. No leverage. It's $80 million. They just paid it up. They're into it. It's theirs. End of story, right? They have no tax on that. Now, what they do, though, in order to get access to liquidity or portion thereof, is they go and they open up a line of credit against it. Now, typically, you can open up a line of credit without really pushing it, 65, 70%. So let's just use 70%. They'll go and open up a line for $56 million against that property. Now they'll have immediate access to that $56 million in cash if they want to go buy another property, right? If they don't use it, well, you're not paying interest on it. But if you do use it and go buy it, let's say you found another house in Palm Beach on the water for $50 million, you go buy that with that line of credit, right? You get to write off the interest. You actually get a tax deduction for the interest you're paying for that because it's a business expense, right? Rather than paying any income tax. So now you just bought effectively $135 million worth of real estate with $80 million in cash, and you paid no income tax on it, and you're actually getting a tax deduction.
Whoa.
That makes sense?
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to circle back around, because it's a beautiful thing when it's done right.
That 1031 exchange is amazing.
It is, but it's you also
because you would think, Jay, but if you're gonna go and get the money that you can't use this money, right? So because it's 1031 exchange, so you got to use it to another investment. So then you're like, okay, so how do I come out of it? How do I ever get to, enjoy the fruits of making over
without having to pay tax?
Without having to pay tax,
right? You're avoiding the broader tax, and then you're opening up the line, which you'll get at like very little interest because it's that property levered at that level.
Yes.
So you're basically having access to 70% of the capital, so you can go reinvest it, but you're borrowing at a cheap rate since it's a line of credit. Not to mention, you still have another 20 or 30 million on the backside, which you're not even tapping into. But more importantly, you're getting a tax credit for any of that interest you're accumulating.
But this doesn't have to be $1 million property, because
no, you can scale it. You could scale it on $100,000. Same game plan.
Because I believe if you're married and you make over $250,000 of profit, you don't get taxed on that, correct?
You don't get taxed on what? You mean you're talking about your primary residence, though?
Primary residence.
You don't pay. No, it's $500,000.
Oh, it's $500,000
for a married
couple.
It's $500,000. You can make up to where you don't have to pay capital gains. But I'm talking more from an investment perspective. You can't do your primary residence 1031. And you don't need to anyway, but it has to be an investment. But if it's an individual, it's up to $250,000 on your primary residence. You have to own it for a certain period of time. I forget what it is. It's like 2 years or something like that, at least, I think. But that's a different conversation. But yeah, it's like 2 years. Individual is $250,000. If a married couple is $500,000, to avoid the capital gains tax on your primary residence.
So that's how,
this is
like,
on the investment side.
That's how, like, real estate investors, they could make their money, and then they could, because they say when you get into real estate, don't buy your dream house the first time around. Get investment properties first, make money on them, sell them, do a 1031 exchange, and then boom, you borrow that 75%, 70%, 65%, and then with that money you go and you build your dream house. There's a lot of different ways to do it, right? But the recipe that I just described is what's typically used, just because of the fact not only you're not avoiding a large tax bill, but you're actually getting tax advantages going into the next fiscal tax year, right? By writing off the interest relating to the new investment. So it actually is a win-win times win, because you're raising your net worth, right?
and you're continuing to lower your tax base at the same time without having to come out of pocket or compromise the proceeds from the asset. So, I mean, it's a I mean, there's much more in-depth ways as well on top of just doing that, but that's just a very broad example of ways that you can minimize tax exposure while still having access to the liquidity and paying cash and still getting tax write-offs over and above the obvious real estate tax write-offs and so on and so forth.
Okay, I got Andre Arnold on YouTube. Hey, Gizzy and Jay, do you know the down payment on a small apartment complex, 10 to 12 units, if I went through HUD to do income-based complex?
Yeah, that changes. But I think, again, don't quote me on this. I know a traditional one, like if you go through like if it's not a HUD, I think it's anywhere from 15 to 20. And I know we talked about this before, where you can get mezzanine financing to cover a portion of the difference, and then you got to come out of pocket a certain amount. With a HUD, obviously, they're trying to facilitate the sale of these properties because they're government-insured properties that they're trying to get off their books, and they give sweetheart financing. So I don't know what it is because it changes. Really, like FH changes yearly. All these government programs change their requirements and such on an annual basis. So unfortunately, I don't have that answer for you, Andre, specifically. I can look it up and email it to you, but I just don't know it off the top of my head what HUD is requiring down. I would think at least 10%. If you want an educated guess, I think 10% is probably, in all reality, what you'd probably be looking at, but I can confirm it for you.
Okay. Okay, well, that was YouTube. Andrew says, man, these people wanting better credit by any means necessary than going through it the right way. That's what we're burning down Atlanta Equifax.
It's crazy.
Oh, my God. So, yeah, I mean, we're making light of the stuff, but it's serious stuff going on outside. I don't know if in your area there's still stuff that's happening, John.
Oh yeah. They're still protesting today for sure. Yeah, it's been going on since lunchtime, I think.
But your area has
no, like in Rittenhouse, no. In City Philadelphia, yeah. I mean, Rittenhouse is shut down. I mean, you can't even.
Oh, you guys are on curfew.
Yeah, it was curfew at 6, but even throughout the day, though, I mean, the foot traffic around here. That's what I'm saying, man. I mean, today was a gorgeous day here, like gorgeous, and like nobody was outside. I mean, it was like this whole thing since I got back has been like mind blowing because it's just.
I could imagine that city living area. You live in a nice area too. The park right outside.
Yeah, we come back for Christmas too, right? We come back in December, and we left to go back to Florida at the end of December, like the last couple of days, and I mean it was humming here, and I got back last Saturday, and it was like, oh my goodness. Like, I don't know if you remember their podcast. I was just like, dude, it's like nothing.
Yeah. You told me that we were 6 weeks, 5 weeks.
It was like coming from a civilized society to an uncivilized society, honestly.
Just today in New Jersey, they opened up the gyms. Phil Murphy opened up the gyms today. So, and by the 15th, today he did, yeah. And other restaurants too here in Jersey. But by the 15th, I believe we're going to be able to sit down in the restaurant and, enjoy. But, it's going to also have, oh, man, what do you call it? Not prediction, restrictions. It's going to have restrictions like the barbershops. The barbershops is crazy. Your barber, the owner of the barber has to know that you don't have COVID. He has to put it out that this barber here, he's clean. He doesn't have COVID. I gotta get my hair cut with a mask on. Just imagine that. I gotta wear a face. I gotta wear a face cover. I gotta wear a face cover, Jay. Like, you know how those plastic face covers? Like you put it, it goes in your forehead, and it's plastic. What is going on? I'm about to let my hair just keep growing. I'm gonna just get shape ups until all this stuff is done.
I think, but this is what I'm talking about, though, man. I mean, this is just motivating people to not want to leave. This is motivating people. I mean, this stuff like this, same thought process, right? And I think that
But in your state, you go get a haircut without your mask on.
Yeah, you mean Florida?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
I don't even know if you got here. The last time I saw you, I saw that you were kind of getting a little bald, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
That's you wish, dude. Dude, listen, I have been getting fades since I was knee high, dude.
My wife
me, I'm not running light on the top. Not at least that light. I'm like average for a 40-year-old person. But the reason I'm saying that is because when I left, you did have to wear them, but I don't know where it's at now. That's why I was saying. I don't know if that's changed.
I don't know if Jay, the media hasn't said anything about COVID lately. Like, it's crazy. Everything is what's happening right now with protesters and all that, and then COVID is like on the side. There's no COVID. It's like, what happened to it? It's like it's driven by the media.
No, it'll represent itself though. Trust me. I mean, it's not something that's just going to disappear. The conversation with that will represent itself, right? But I think right now it's the way the news cycle works, right?
Yeah.
And we're dealing in this kind of a news cycle right now. So I mean, this is just on the front, and it deserves to be. I mean, obviously, you want to make sure that the situation gets the proper amount of attention as it should, right? I mean, if there's imbalances like that in society, they should be adjusted. So I think as a result of that, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And honestly, I'm not. I honestly am a little like we talked about Corona for so long that talking about something else is even though it's tragic is not the worst thing,
Yeah, that's true. I got Sandy baby. She's always on our lives on YouTube. She says, I live in Atlanta and my nephew in Canada had to call me to ask me if I was safe. She says, I don't watch TV and I avoid negativity. So don't ask me who Bill Gates is either. Okay. Then she goes, I haven't worn a mask since this whole pandemic started. I only put it on if the store says mandatory in capital letters. Stop being sheeples and quit watching the news. Only sheeples watch the news. Now, I live in northern New Jersey, Bergen County, where the people who live in Bergen County, they work in New York City, and we have the bulk of I don't know how many cases in New Jersey, but it's thousands of cases of COVID that were here, and a lot of the deaths were here in Bergen County. So I wear my mask with no problem.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. I understand what she's saying, right?
Correct.
And disconnecting from that lane. Here's the problem, though, is that 80% of people in this country, their entire perspective is molded by the television, right? Yes. And 80% of those people are a large majority of the consumer base in our country. So you can normally understand why a consumer makes a decision in any one of these developments because the media effectively tells them when to go to the bathroom. The media tells them when to get out of bed. The media tells them when it's good to start, mixing wine and coffee because the doctor said so, even if it didn't really happen. Stuff like this that Correct. They get addicted. So when the media starts pushing moving out of cities and stuff like that, you can really start to take a cue from that because that's what a lot of the consumer base in our country is led. I mean, it's called the herd for a reason. There's a reason that the 80% in the country is referenced to as the herd. It's because they're led to places. It's not because they're leading places. So I understand what she's saying completely, but when you're making investment decisions and you're arriving at conclusions and there's money on the line, whether you're an individual buying a primary residence, I do agree ignorance is bliss in a lot of cases, and I think that's awesome. And my sister's like that. That's what she does. Yeah. And I get it, right? I mean, you don't want to get caught up in the negativity. The problem is that if you're somebody that's an investor and you do this all day, every day, in every possible financial way, it's a very good insight into what you can expect the natural consumer to do. Because unfortunately, the TV is
not only the TV, Jay. Now it's social media, Facebook, Instagram, not that much, but Facebook. They got their own incels there. People have their own groups and stuff that they scare you. It's crazy. Social media has a lot to do with it too.
Yeah, no, and it's all the same idea though, right? So I mean, it's a way of you know, if you're somebody that can watch the news and watch the media and be able to discern between fact from fiction and what's real and what's propaganda, etc., it
Yeah,
works,
that's true.
right?
That's true.
It works because you can get a lot of knowledge from television and stuff like that for that reason. But I don't think a lot of people are capable of doing that, and that's where the problem comes in. So although I do agree with everything she's saying, I do think though that it's a good idea though. If you're an investor, if you're somebody that's making an investment or you're an investor, something like you don't have a choice. Fortunately, it's a really good insight and a really good leading indicator of watching the way because you can really sometimes just step back and see what the media is pushing. Right, it's really easy to kind of step back and get a really good digestion of what they're trying to push in the direction they're trying to go in a lot of cases, and economically. That normally, you know, translates to things. If you can figure that out, it can be very beneficial.
The media has a lot to do with this economy, Jay.
You mean the well, I don't know. I don't know. I think, you know, look, it is what it is. I don't want to get into too much of that because
that's the whole thing.
That's a wormhole. But I think I think it's undoubted that, you know, that a lot of people's frame of mind are sculpted by the media, and as a result, they're led around in certain areas unbeknownst to themselves, and they do things that because television says it, and there's a story on it, it's got to be true. So, you know, you got to do it the way they tell you to, and as a result, they move and hurt, and as a result, you can kind of get a good idea of where things are heading, you know?
Freddie, our customer in Northern California, I forget what town, what city he's from. He says here, he's in South California. Here in SoCal of Southern California, we are open. Just finished dining in In-N-Out Burger. Laugh out loud.
That's great, though. I mean, that's great. Unfortunately, it's, you know, that's not everywhere else. I mean, that's Florida for sure, but I mean, that's not. Sadly, that's not a lot of other areas. But definitely not up here in the Northeast. But
not in the Northeast, especially with COVID, and now with these. You know, with John is in ground zero. He went downstairs and he's like, "Oh my God, these people are just looting with no problem, taking stuff." That's crazy.
Man, they pulled up. Listen, this is the crazy part. This is how crazy it was. So my building is right on the square, right on the corner of 18th and Walnut, facing the square, and they pulled up like 5 cars. This is one example of the people that were looting right on Walnut. They pulled up in like 5 cars right in front of my building, which is normally, you know, portioned off.
Yes.
And they all got out with like a weapon, went right to work, right? They all rolled up, like 5 cars, like a caravan, came up, just went right to work, started banging out the windows at TD, running in, taking the change thing. What do they call it? Not the change, the register. They're taking the registers, then they worked their way down. They just worked all the way down, came back, sat right in front of the building. We're sorting out the clothes they wanted, threw the ones they didn't, loaded up all the stuff that they took, and left whatever they didn't want. Crazy thing you've ever seen.
John, they were doing that to Old Navy. When Old Navy will sell you 2 pairs of jeans for $19.99. Why are you going to go? I saw people going and taking candy from the 5 and below. Like, serious? The 5 and below.
I told you yesterday there was on City Line Avenue, which is like on the it's in Philly, but it's, you know, it's like the border of Philly, off of 76, and there was a Target. I'm not laughing about this. I'm making a joke about this, but there was a Target that was hit on Friday night. Cops came out. It was on TV, right? Mm-hmm. It was like they made it known that this Target got hit, right?
Yes.
They boarded it up. Next night, they come back again, hit it worse. So they already had half the doors with plywood on them, right?
Yes.
Already plywooded up from the first day. Then they come back the next day, right before curfew. It was like 5:50. Just start ransack. People are coming out with armfuls of shit. Just armfuls, and they got the helicopters just watching them.
Yes.
And it was like, when I saw that stuff, I'm like, man, this could go on for a little while. You know, when you go back and you're hitting the same place with no with no
with no police, no policemen.
forget about it. I mean, now the National Guard's here, so it's a little different. They're starting to rough people up here now, so I mean, they're going to have to calm down a little bit. But you know, they're getting aggressive, which I don't mind aggressive. I just don't want anybody. You know, I don't want to see anything get out of hand, right? And then something gets stupid where, you know, a cop gets too, you know, like what
Too
happened
aggressive.
the other day.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't want to see. You don't want to land back at the cause of this. You know, not the cause, but the tragedy of this whole situation. So,
yes.
But they, you know, they're in a tough spot, right? So they gotta be able to instill the law. And in order to do that, you got to be able to get the respect of the people that are, you know, that you're trying to instill the law with. So in this case, you know, I think that hopefully they'll get it under control and they do it the right way, right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And there's not any. They've been good so far here in Philly, man. I mean, the cops have been awesome here so far, doing their best. So I hope everything continues to work out that way. I just think it's crazy just about the looting element of it, and just you know, going back to what I was saying earlier about how when I woke up that Saturday morning, it's just guys walking around with boxes, and I'm not laughing about this. I'm just without a care in the world, man. You would think if you just walked out of a business that just got fleeced and you went in there to get the rest of the stuff, you would think you'd be running to your car, right?
Yes.
I mean, these guys put the boxes on top. I mean, I was walking by them on 18th. They put the boxes on him and his friend and the girlfriend. Put the boxes on the car. They're talking, leaning against the car, and I'm like, this is crazy.
Oh my God. Right?
It's crazy. You go back and you hit the same department store. You hit the day. I mean, some of the stuff is just you can't even believe it when you see it. You know?
And of course, those people are not even from your area. Those people are not from your area.
Probably not. You know, but I don't know what area they're from. But whatever it is, they came prepared. And you know, like I said, they drove up, so they weren't coming from the protests.
Yeah.
You know, they at least the ones that parked in front of my building, they drove up. They knew what they were doing. They came in ready. You know, so I mean, I hope you know, the focus can go back to the purpose of the situation, right? Meaning,
yes.
to get the point across so that this issue doesn't continue to present itself. You know, people, and I don't want to get too much into it. I hope that this time it resonates and this time it stops.
Yes, of course. Yes. Yes. Gotta stop this stuff.
You know,
just imagine the amount of different types of people we have helped in the last 10 years, 8 years that we've been together. I mean, I could have, the people who call me, some people are all types of life, you know, Indian, Sikh customers, Muslims, Russian, everything, all types of people. I mean, when it comes to credit doesn't have any specific. Everybody has credit. There's
it's one common goal. The common goal is to get the report right. You know.
Correct.
And look, at the end of the day, that's not how we operate anyway, man. I mean, we don't. I mean, it wouldn't.
We help out everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't. There's not even.
It's one of the reasons why I got on Facebook, because I mean, I got on YouTube because I wanted to help out everyone. You know, that's why I put up the videos, educating people. You know, John gives me the results. I post the videos, and you know, when you see, you know, California customer gets credit repair results, Texas, Chicago customer, Connecticut, people in the South or North Carolina, DMV area, Florida, Louisiana. I mean, I just love helping. We love helping people. You know, we love. Yeah. I think that we get off on just like, you know, you got a new car and you got it with you know 3% rate. Oh, that feels good for us. You know, you got a new house, the house that you wanted. Oh, that's what feels good. And I don't think that has changed for me in the last 10 years that I've been doing this. I genuinely love helping people. The problem comes when you just have these people that want to take advantage of your knowledge, of your situation, and I definitely don't like the people who we give them advice and then they don't follow it. That is definitely like,
yeah, but you know what, listen, look, there's always an element in any line of work. It doesn't matter if you're selling golf clubs, doing credit, work at a bank, you're an investment advisor, etc. You're always going to have an element that it's just the way society exists. That's going to, and the fact our element is very small, the percentage, which I'm very grateful for.
Okay,
right?
The percentage of people, yes, there's going to be a percent
that pose an issue or try to, extract knowledge and they have no interest in moving forward and things like that. Like that, I don't mind because I'm transparent as far as helping people want to do that, and I think that's great. I think broadly speaking, though, I think the goal is to get them in the position, and I don't think a lot of companies actually take the same amount of pride in when to actually see the clients get to the goal, right? But there's also an emotional element that exists in it that, you get the person to buy into the process because they've seen it replicated over and over and over again. They've seen it done over and over and over again. And I understand the natural skepticism walking in because either they've been wronged by another company or they just are naturally skeptical of the general idea. But then they start to buy in. So it's actually really rewarding getting them to that point because not only because you want to get them to that point, but more importantly because you allow them to realize that it's whatever level of skepticism, if that existed, was misplaced, more importantly. But then they really buy into the process, right? And then it's helped. More importantly, because a lot of the clients we've had and we've helped to read, they come back not because their credit's always bad, but because they have questions or they need things answered, and it's always an open door. So I mean, it's much more of a cohesive environment. You know what I mean? Like it's a cohesive environment a lot of the time. I mean, some clients come to us, they get cleaned up, we don't hear from them again, which is great. I mean, but a lot of them, that's not the case, and I think that's awesome, and we appreciate that.
A lot of the customers that we help out, they get to see the idea of how credit works, and they go and they take risk with it. They go and put up a business, or they go and get more credit so that they could have an entrepreneurial spirit, which is also great. But then you got these people that put up their businesses, COVID happens, and the next thing you know, you gotta let it go and you need your credit fixed again.
Shit happens.
Right? Yeah, over here, Andrew just finished saying, man, it's been an eye-opener. They are not rookies out here, bro. I mean, they took down 2 police precincts, bro. Fired. They lit them on fire. That's crazy.
Yeah, I saw it on TV. It's crazy.
Sandy on YouTube says, so you think those people, the looters, have bad credit?
I don't know.
And then Freddie's saying many media making everything worse too, especially fake CNN news. Well, And then Andrew just finished writing right now. 3rd precinct and substation on Chicago Lake Street, which is about 9 blocks from the tragedy on 38th in Chicago. Wow. And then Sandy's laughing. Gizzy, you don't know how much you helped me when I started credit repair. You were the only one that was willing to give me information, and eventually I purchased your personal package. Bravo, Sandy. See, John?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's I mean the like we're just I know it's hard for. I mean, people that really buy in and they become clients of ours, not just near term, mid-term, long-term. Even the people that buy just the systems and they don't do it, they realize that there's really an invested interest in the success of the situation, right?
Yes.
I mean, we don't take things on to charge a monthly fee and keep you on the hook for 24 months and have you be irate with us. I mean, when you're writing to us, you deal with us directly. You get emails back all hours of the night. I mean, it's just the way it is. We work with the idea that we're trying to get you to the goal that you trusted us to get you to. And I think, along with all the other things that we do, I just think that differentiates us from a lot of clients. I'm not saying we're the only company that does as good at what they do or gets people to goals or any of that. I'm just saying that's
and Jay, Sandy's been following us since 2013. She an old head. 2013, Jay. That's when 2012. That around when we started working.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's I think the good thing about these casts is that it just gives us an opportunity, like I always say, just to add a little more transparency to our broader process, who we are, what we're about, the knowledge that we have, the service that we provide, and the extent to which we can provide that service. And I think at that point, just like I always say with these casts, the more we can educate people, the more we can give them the rules to the game, the more we can tell them what to look for, the more we can open their eyes to things that they maybe didn't notice before, whether they're a client of ours or not, the more they can make the right decision. And honestly, there's a lot of self-destructive people that exist. So we can give you all the answers. We can tell you the answers to the test before you take it. And some people will just answer them incorrectly because they think it's wrong for some reason, right? Because they don't trust people or for any other reason. But when we're setting people up and the knowledge we're giving to this stuff is like us giving you the answers to the test, right? And if you choose to follow it, that's up to you. We can't force you to do it. but we're going to tell you what's in your best interest, right? And then you can make the determination if you know all the rules and you have all the, have all the facts and you're able to arrive at that understanding. You can make the decision on your own that you're comfortable with. And if it conflicts with ours, that's fine. But we just want to give you the information we know as fact and how we understand it as fact. And then you can make that determination. But the goal of these is just to provide as much education as we can, on a free basis without charging for the education so that, people can absorb different perspectives of things,
And
because a lot of this knowledge that we give in these casts, a lot of people sell it, they don't understand the depth that I understand or the degree that I understand, and they charge people money for that.
That is very true.
This is an opportunity for people to really soak up knowledge that they might not find other places.
And the thing about it is that we've helped people get $100,000 homes, and we've also helped people get $1.5 million homes. That they're like they ask us questions about, oh, I gotta, remember the whatchamacallit, we help high profile people, and they want to get the $1.3 million homes, and we coach them through that process. I mean, John coaches them through that process. So there's not an answer.
I mean, listen, it's having credit imperfections is a reality of civilization, right? I mean, it's not specific to any demographic. There's not just one demographic that runs into issues on the credit side, So I mean, but we definitely help all types, and we're happy to help everybody. I mean, we look forward to helping people. We like helping people. And
just be patient with the process. We're gonna get you there.
Absolutely, and honestly, man, that's not really a problem we have anymore. I know we keep saying that, but we say that.
I say it because some people just watch one video and then they call me. So I think
it's right to say, but I'm saying nowadays. I mean, back in the day, when there was just when there was just so many people presenting it in a certain way that was inaccurate, and people thought it could get done in 15 minutes. There was the time, and we still do. Look, it's a process to get you to buy in, right? Because we need you to buy in. We need you to trust the process. We need you to know that you're in good hands. We need you to know that we're going to get you where you need to be, right? But the clients that we have now, which we're very grateful for, are all good people that want to come in. They're buying into the process. They're all for it, man. And that's awesome because that makes it a great process, right? You start knocking out goals. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, it's a good feeling because these are goals that these people are trying to hit that they didn't think they'd ever be able to achieve, I mean, we had a client on today. We just started with Friday. And she was like, can you tell me when, we had our intake call, right? So you think you can tell me when I'll be ready to get a house? Said, we'll have you ready for an FHA loan in the first dispute. Now, that's not everybody. This was specific to her. I'm just giving you an example. And she was like, oh, well, I'm not going to be ready that quick. I'm like, all right, well, we'll get you ready. We'll let you know that you're ready. And then, you can buy the house whenever you want, but you'll have that approval in your hand. You'll be ready to go. And I think she was floored by the fact that it would be ready that quick, right? So it's stuff like that. We like being able to get you to a point where you didn't think you'd be able to get to, and then doing it in a sustainable way for a period of time that obviously will give you the opportunity to be able to maintain it and not run into sustainability issues.
Okay. You there, John?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so Fat Boy 850, he always listens to the podcast too. He says, have either of you experienced with your customers, financial institutions charge Black and Hispanic people higher interest rates? A Honda dealer in New York just got caught doing this.
That's the thing. Honda dealer in New York, they don't lend their own money. So it would be more in line with what we've talked about from the beginning, which relates to the yield spreads that they build in.
But
right? So
if you're gonna go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say if you go back to we've done a number of these on the auto dealers and how they make money on the financing side of things. They don't lend directly. So in most cases, right? So when you go to an auto dealer, they're using outside lenders that they're running you through, similar to like a lending tree scenario, and they get commercial rates. Then they turn around and they upcharge you a yield spread. So if they get quoted 3%, if they think you look like a moron, they'll come back out and they'll say, okay, you know what? We got you quoted at 6%. They'll make a 3% yield spread on the middle of it on the loan amount of the car. So it's a $30,000 car. They make an extra 3% on that, which represents $900 to the finance manager on that deal, right, for the yield spread. Plus, the salesman gets whatever commission he gets on it. The problem is that 3 points, that 3%, on a $30,000 loan over the course of 5-6 years could represent $12,000-$14,000. So yeah, that's probably why. And I'm glad there's people finally putting legislation because it's criminal anyway. I'm not saying all dealers are criminal, but the idea that it's so predatory that you eyeball somebody and you make an assertion, you basically make an assertion in how stupid they look, or at least in your opinion, how stupid they look and fiscally unwise, which I think is terrible, is awful. So I've been calling for this every single podcast we talk about.
Because people just want to walk out with that car, Jay. They got that bad habit of just whatever.
No. They just don't know any different, man. A lot of people don't know what their interest rate is. So when somebody comes out and tells them, they're not thinking the person's a scumbag.
That's true.
You just don't know. This is why I say with these podcasts, we like to educate so that you know the rules of the game, right?
Yeah.
You know what to ask. You know what's happening. You know that at the end of the day, whatever yield you're getting on that auto loan that salesman's walking out with, you can get that down. Because you can 100% guarantee there's a yield spread built into the middle of that. If you go to a dealer, which I don't think you should for financing, just pick the car out. You should get your financing in place beforehand. But if you were going to, you can do that. So going back to his earlier question, we not nowadays because we're so adamant about making sure the clients that come with us get their approval before they go in so that they don't go to a dealer. But in the past, we've seen that start with us after they've gone to a dealer. Yeah, of course we see them get upcharged. So that's a large revenue generator at an auto dealership for sure.
Yeah. Well, Freddie just asked, hey, Jay, any positive news in real estate, house market, funding guidelines? I mean, we talked about it in the beginning of the podcast, but right now everything looks to be tight.
I don't, real estate wise, I mean, the only part that came out of last week was just the fact that new home sales were more than the estimate last month, which was still terrible, but the actual the values of the houses went down. So new construction houses, the average new construction house across the country went down rather significantly. It was like, I want to say it was like $30,000 or $40,000, which in the average house in this country sells for like $350,000. So you're talking about it was in the low 300s. So if you're one of that guys that bought on the front end of that new construction pile, you're upside down right now probably. But financing wise, I haven't heard anything new because there hasn't been any element of certainty that we've seen, right?
Well, how about the people like the Brazilian couple that we're helping with their credit in Florida? Did that stuff ever get situated?
Yeah, but that was an agent. They were just getting hosed by an agent, and this is why I have so much trouble with agents.
Yeah.
Just to catch everybody up, a client of ours,
real estate agent, correct?
No, they're not real estate agents.
They're not real estate agents, but
a couple of ours was buying a new construction from a big home builder. And they weren't supposed to go into escrow until June. The house would be getting built the end of last year, and they were going to escrow in June. And their agent, by the way, not a lender, an agent, called them up last week and said, "You got to have a 700 credit score to get a mortgage. If not, we're getting rid of your house." And they called us, and I said, "Listen, there's lenders didn't stop lending. FHA didn't move up. FHA is exactly where it is." And I told them everything to ask the agent back. Right? All the questions. They basically cut and pasted my email. And she wrote back and she says, "Okay, you got to show me a 600 then." Right? And I wrote that, and I'm having them write through, taking my emails. And I said, "How do we get from 700 to 600 in a heartbeat?" Right? And it was ignored. And I said, "Listen, I mean, this is borderline predatory, right? Like you're getting into a situation where you're trying to force these people out when they're in this situation." And this is the agent again, by the way. So this is why I have such difficulty with agents on a general level, because they're just, in some cases, not all of them, but in some cases they can be extremely self-serving, right? Relating to their situation.
You talking too nice. You talking too nice, Jay.
Yeah, I'm trying to, because there's probably a lot of agents that listen to this at some point in time. So I don't want to crap on and say how I really feel in a lot of situations, because there's a lot of, I've talked about this before, and I don't need to go into too much depth. There's a really good percentage of realtors in this country. It represents my personal experience 10 to 15%.
Yes.
Beyond that, it starts getting sketchy. There's a lot of personal interests that are thrust to the forefront that are more about closing the deal than it is about the fiduciary responsibility of the client. And I constantly am arguing with agents on a regular basis about it. But whatever the case may be, in this case, it culminated with, I go, okay, well, we sent him over a copy of the Experian report with the scores are above 600. She goes, we're not going to accept this. We need a hard pull on it. I said, why the fuck would we waste a hard pull when you're seeing the report? You know, like, why would we waste a hard pull at this particular time when the scores are clearly above that? So this whole agent was just running interference. You know what I mean? Maybe she had somebody up. Maybe she just thought it would take longer to close. I don't know. But it's just an example of, you know, going back to Freddie's original question of, have things loosened up? No. And that's an example of that agent. Their preferred lender told them that FHA is only doing 680 to 700 now, which is absurd, not true. Mm-hmm. But it's their way of weeding out the files that may take a little longer to close because of the liquidity things I've explained in previous podcasts about the secondary mortgage market. So no, things haven't, until a level of certainty, which, by the way, the last, I don't know, 3 days just juiced up the uncertainties in our economy.
Yes.
Until some certainty starts to present itself, you're going to see these training wheels on, right? And the slow lending. And, you know, I was telling everybody last time that Chase isn't business lending through the end of the year. American Express has effectively cut off their business lending. They had to take all their sales reps and move them over to loss mitigation. There was an article I sent over to Gizzy a couple days ago reflecting that. So you're seeing a lot of fallout that's going on from this, and a lot of that is largely due to the uncertainty and the consumer, you know, tightening up as a result of it. So I don't see it changing, and I don't see things loosening up anytime soon, but that doesn't mean people can't still buy houses.
Correct.
You know, that doesn't mean that lending options still aren't there. It's just going to be tighter. That's all.
Okay. All right. One last, Andrew, just finished saying, you guys are truly game changers for people, whether it's credit restoration to financial coaching or even starting a business, especially who's in business already or anyone that is trying to do something in life, period. Keep leading the way, guys. These podcasts are transformative. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. That's nice.
Thank you very much. Very nice. Very nice of you. Thanks. And Andrew, he listens to the podcast all the time. So definitely Fat Boy is saying, so glad to have you guys. Y'all see through the BS. Yes, we do.
That's nice too. Yeah, I mean, we try. So I mean, it's a situation we try. Like I said before, I mean, you know, and I was talking about Gizzy this the other day. I mean, we're very, very fortunate. So the least we can do is try and get back with some of these podcasts and get back to some information, some education.
Because we've been actually, during all of this COVID stuff, we actually been busy with helping people with their credit. A lot of people are starting credit repair with us. So, you know, looking at other people with the way the economy is doing and you guys keeping us busy, we're thankful, you know. So I'll actually, you know, look forward to these podcasts, because you know, some of the stuff that John talks about, that business related or 1031 exchange, the way he explained that to me right now, he's not only explaining it to you, he's explaining it to me. I mean, he's explaining it to you guys. So you guys understand it, and he puts it in terms in which we all understand and get educated from it. When it comes time for us to do it, we're going to be knowledgeable of it, and then, you know, see our way through it. So definitely, sure. Jay. Yeah. I think we're done. That's an hour, 58 minutes. Mondays are always busy, but you guys want to get in contact with us, you know, you already know, right over here, my info. Anything else you want to say, John?
Nope. Just like we always say at the end, if you know anybody that could use any information, definitely share it with them, because you know,
the content. I only got 5 likes, you know, so just like the content, please.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the more we can get a lot of this information out to people, the more education they can get. They're not, you know, and it's free, and they can make their own determination on it. So appreciate anybody that listens, though. And if you know anybody that can be helped, definitely forward them to the podcast so they can get a more in-depth knowledge. And
next week, John will be back in Florida. It's so crazy, Jay. Man, what a shame.
Yeah, well, listen, it is what it is. Like I said, you know, we'll normalize to whatever comes out of this, whatever it looks like. But hopefully everything goes back to normal soon, or whatever our version of normal happens to be. That's a little less uncertain and a little less volatile, So, but you take it day by day. That's where we're at right now,
Taking it day by day, and you know what? We're thankful to be taking it day by day, but actually having to focus on work, on helping you guys. So definitely, we appreciate you guys who tune in, watch us, and then you subscribers too. This is what we're about, helping people, and we just hope that you see that too. Okay. All right, Jay. Thank you so much, man.
You got it.
Yeah. Take care. So, this is how you contact us. You could just DM me here on Facebook, or you could just go to my the comment below your information, or you could text me to this phone number right back here, or you can go to the website and put your information too. All right. So I want to say thank you. The horrible things that are happening right now, we got to pray that they stop, and that we continue to live our life, and hopefully now in a different way, that police see people like this color over here in a different way. I mean, I live in a predominantly Polish neighborhood, but I'm not, I don't go out thinking that people are gonna be prejudice of me or anything like that. I see people for who they are. They treat me nice, I treat them nice, and that's what it's all about. But no, some people, they have it worse, and definitely we need to stop the racism or anything that's happening with that, and the rioting and all that needs to stop. We need to get back on the roll and get the economy going, because your life is on the line right there with that too. So with that said, I want to say thank you for logging on today. I don't want to sound too happy with what's going on, but you guys like the song, so I put the song for you guys. So I'm gonna see you. Can we get to send off with the GizzyCredit Club? Yes, Sandy, this is it. Let's go to my Instagram. Hey. 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 Thank you to the people who logged on. Thank you, Facebook, YouTube. 2 hours. See you later. Hey. Hey. You no longer gotta look pathetic. Look pathetic. Gizzy. Oh. Y'all play too much with me. I'm gonna see you guys later. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace out. Love it. I'm gonna see you.